Meanwhile, South Africa will comply fully with the AU Free Trade Agreement. The Minister of Trade and Industry, Rob Davies, says South Africa will be joining the countries that have ratified the agreement.
We will be depositing the instrument of ratification. Parliament ratified the agreement last year, and now we will be depositing the instrument of ratification. So we will be one of the early movers on this. 22 countries have to ratify for the agreement to come into force, and we'll wait and see what the scorecard is at this particular meeting. But the indications are that during the course of this year, the 22 should be reached.
What does it mean?
Well, it means that, as I said, the agreement can only come into force when 22 countries have ratified, not just signed, but ratified as well. So the scorecard is important in that regard. Once it is ratified by 22, it comes into force. There will be some reports here at the summit on some of the final issues around the modalities for the negotiations and the submission of offers, and also the establishment of the Secretariat, which is going to guide the CFTA process. The phase one that we're in now is going to be about trading goods as well as trading services. So it should, once it starts coming into force and starts to be a meaningful agreement, not just a framework, but actually that there are direct commitments, it should start to create a free trade area that will be a large market that can enable not just an increase in inter-regional trade, but the emergence of regional value chains that can support deeper industrialization across the continent. So that's the journey that we're on.
Well, the World Trade Organization and the global trading systems are facing serious challenges in terms of unilateral measures and countermeasures by some members, deadlock in important areas of negotiations, and ongoing impasse in the appointment of the members of the Appellate Body of the WTO's dispute settlement mechanisms. The Trade and Industry Minister Rob Davies says the stability and prosperity of the organization lies solely with the US's willingness to be part of the solution.
The WTO is indeed facing a very significant crisis, and the immediate source of that is going to be whether the US agrees to the appointment of positions in the Appellate Body of the dispute settlement institutions. If they don't, then those bodies will be disabled, and the WTO will not be able to fulfill one of its key mandates of enforcing the agreements. But as you say, behind that there is what are called trade wars, which are impacting on many of us in one shape or form. And ultimately, I think these are not just about issues of tariffs one way or another, but ultimately it's about this fourth industrial revolution, who's going to be the leader in this. And I think that we're in for a rather long period of, if you like, some sort of a new Cold War on this matter. So that's what it's going to be. So I think the global environment is likely to be a bit more turbulent. The possibilities that new industrializers are going to be able to find ready markets in the developed world, I think we should temper that expectation, which is why China is turning to its own domestic market, why India is also relying on its big domestic market. And as individual African countries, we don't have the size of population or the numbers of GDP that would justify deep industrialization. But as a continent, we do. 1.2 billion people, a combined GDP of over $3 trillion US. So I think that's what the Continental FTA is about. It's about creating a basis for, if you like, own industrialization on our continent and allowing the emergence of the value chains that will permit and support that.
Well, on domestic issues, Minister Rob Davies says Finance Minister Tito Mboweni will outline where finances will come from to unbundle Eskom and to establish a directorate within the National Prosecuting Authority to deal with systematic corruption.
The investment environment has improved very significantly. I think if you look at the response that there was to the SONA, again, I think strongly positive. But let the numbers speak. Last year was a year when we saw a decline in foreign direct investment worldwide. This is according to the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. But actually, in the case of South Africa, we increased FDI into South Africa from $1.3 billion US to $7.1 billion, which is a 4.5 times increase. So, in other words, we bucked the trend. So I think that investors are speaking with their money, and the investment conference was quite a big success, particularly if you look at it in the context of a trend where FDI went down. And of course, the investment conference mobilized domestic investment, a larger quantum of domestic investment, in fact. So I think that we can see that the trend line is definitely up. Of course, there are challenges in the economy. Probably the biggest one and the most immediate one is Eskom. And the President announced a number of steps that would be taken, guided by this commission that he appointed into Eskom. So,
where will the money come from?
Well, the money, the Eskom money, well, I think that's something that the budget will announce. But there is a definite determination to grapple with the hard issues and to put right what was not right.
To deal with issue of corruption, the President announced that within the National Prosecuting Authority, there's going to be a unit that deals specifically with corruption, decisively so. Where will money come from in terms of ensuring that we have such a structure?
Well, I'm sure that priorities like this will not find themselves wanting because of lack of finance. I'm sure we will find the funding for that. But the corruption has had a very big deleterious effect, including on we've had border control has weakened. As a result of all the shenanigans in SARS, and we've seen things like under-invoicing coming back with a bang, so that the level of import penetration, illegal import, substandard products has actually gone up in recent years, and we need to recover our capacity there and deal with all the issues there. Localization, we've seen that policy too weakened by a number of bent tenders, all of which have gone to support imports at the expense of locally produced goods. And we've got to recover that ground. So I think that dealing with corruption and state capture and all of the various manifold manifestations of that is going to be a very, very important task as lies ahead.
But Minister, we seem to be reluctant as a country to deal with the issue of illicit financial flows. I mean, the legislation that is supposed to address that, you've just pointed out how people are kind of abusing the system.
Well, I said that our capacity to monitor under-invoicing at borders was weakened. We had some improvement, and then we saw regression over the last few years. And I think that similarly with illicit flows of capital, stuff like that, where exports are being falsely invoiced and where people are accumulating money in tax havens and stuff like that. That's a piece of work that also requires international engagement, and it is happening. And I think that we'll have to wait and see what specifically is announced in the budget to address that. But that is a problem, I have no doubt.